Good morning, and welcome to day 11 of 365 days of our Bible in a year. I'll be following again the Adventure Timeline. We'll be reading together in the New International Version. My name is Pastor Jay Lutz, and today we're going to be reading Genesis 22 to 23, Job 11 to 12, and Proverbs 2, 9 to 15. Genesis 22 to 23 will be covering Abraham and his test concerning Isaac, where he has to take Isaac up the mountain and he's ready to sacrifice him. And then also we'll see in chapter 23 the death of his wife Sarah. It's very sad. Also we'll be reading Job 11 and 12, where we hear the response from Jophar the Naamathite, and his response to Job, and then in chapter 12, Job's response back to Jophar. And so we'll be listening about this again between friends. And then Proverbs will be continuing to hear from King Solomon about God's protection for those who follow wisdom. Let us begin. Genesis 22. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. And God said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about." Early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey, while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke and said to his father Abraham, "Father." "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and the wood are here," Isaac said. "But where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel Lord called out to him from the heavens, "Abraham, Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide," and to this day it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." The angel Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, "I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me." Then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set off together for Beersheba. And Abraham stayed in Beersheba. Sometime later, Abraham was told, "Milcah is also a mother. She has borne sons to your brother Nahor. Uz the firstborn, Buz his brother, Kemuel the father of Aram, Kesed, Hazo, Pildash, Zidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. Milcah bore these 8 sons to Abraham's brother Nahor. His concubine, whose name was Reumah, also had sons, Tebah, Gam, Tahash, and Makah. Chapter 23. Sarah lived to be 127 years old. She died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went to mourn for Sarah and to weep over her. Then Abraham rose beside his dead wife and spoke to the Hittites. He said, I am an alien and a stranger among you. Sell me some property for a burial site here, so I can bury my dead. The Hittites replied to Abraham, Sir, listen to us. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will refuse you his tomb for burying your dead. Then Abraham rose, and he bowed down before the people of the land of the Hittites. He said to them, If you are willing to let me bury my dead, then listen to me and intercede with Ephron, son of Zohar, on my behalf, so he will sell me the cave of Machpelah, which belongs to him, and is at the end of his field. Ask him to sell it to me for the full price as a burial site amongst you. Ephron the Hittite was sitting among his people, and he replied to Abraham in the hearing of all the Hittites who had come to the gate of his city, No, my lord, listen to me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. I give it to you in the presence of my people. Bury your dead. Again, Abraham bowed down before the people of the land, and he said to Ephron in their hearing, Listen to me, if you will. I will pay the price of the field. Accept it from me, so I can bury my dead there. Ephron answered Abraham, Listen to me, my lord. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. But what is that between me and you? Bury your dead. Abraham agreed to Ephron's terms, and he weighed out for him the price he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, according to the weight current among the merchants. So Ephron's field and Machpelah near Mamre, both the field and the cave in it, and all the trees within the borders of the field, were deeded to Abraham as his property, in the presence of all the Hittites who had come to the gate of the city. Afterwards, Abraham buried his wife Sarah in the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre, which is at Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave in it were deeded to Abraham by the Hittites as a burial site. Our next reading is from Job 11 to 12. Then Zophar the Naamathite replied, Are all these words to go unanswered? Is this talker to be vindicated? Will your idle talk reduce men to silence? Will no one rebuke you when you mock? You say to God, My beliefs are flawless, and I am pure in your sight. Oh, how I wish that God would speak, that he would open his lips against you and disclose to you the secrets of wisdom. For true wisdom has two sides. Know this, God has even forgotten some of your sins. Can you fathom the mysteries of God? Can you probe the limits of the Almighty? They are higher than the heavens. What can you do? They are deeper than the depth of the grave. What can you know? Their measure is longer than the earth and wider than the sea. If he comes along and confines you in prison and convenes a court, who can oppose him? Surely he recognizes deceitful men, and when he sees evil, does he not take note? But a witless man can no more become wise than a wild donkey's colt can be born a man. Yet if you devote your heart to him and stretch out your hands to him, if you put away the sin that is in your hands and allow no evil to dwell in your tent, then you will lift up your face without shame. You will stand firm and without fear. You will surely forget your troubles, recalling it only as waters gone by. Life will be brighter than noonday. The darkness will become like morning. You will be secure because there is hope. You will look about you and take your rest in safety. You will lie down with no one to make you afraid, and many will court your favor. But the eyes of the wicked will fail, and escape will elude them. Their hope will become a dying gasp. Chapter 12. Then Job replied, Doubtless you are people, and wisdom will die with you. But I have a mind as well as you, and I am not inferior to you. Who does not know all these things? I have become a laughingstock to my friends. Though I called upon God, and he answered, a mere laughingstock, though righteous and blameless. Men at ease have contempt for misfortune, As the fate of those whose feet are slipping, the tent of marauders are undisturbed, and those who provoke God are secure, those who carry their God in their hands. But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds of the air, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you. Let the fish of the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of every mankind. Does not the ear test words as the tongue tastes food? Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? To God belongs wisdom and power. Counsel and understanding are his. What he tears down cannot be rebuilt. The man he imprisons cannot be released. If he holds back the waters, there is drought. If he lets them loose, they devastate the land. To him belongs strength and victory. Both deceived and deceiver are his. He leads counsels away, stripped and makes fools of judges. He takes off the shackles put on by kings and ties a loincloth around their waist. He leads priests away stripped and overthrows men long established. He silences the lips of trusted advisers and takes away the discernment of elders. He pours contempt on nobles and disarms the mighty. He reveals the deep things of darkness and brings deep shadows into the light. He makes nations great and destroys them. He enlarges nations and disperses them. He deprives the leaders of the earth of their reason. He sends them wandering through a trackless waste. They grope in darkness with no light. He makes them stagger like drunkards. Our final reading is from Proverbs chapter 2, verses 9 to 15. Then you will understand what is right and just and fair, every good path. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will protect you, and understanding will guard you. Wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked men, from men whose words are perverse, and who leaves the straight path to walk in dark ways, who delights in doing wrong and rejoices in the perverseness of evil, whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. We hear a lot about wisdom here, and we learn that it is best to be discreet about things, especially when it comes to the things of God. That with wisdom, when it enters the heart and knowledge, that it brings pleasantness to the soul. We also read about Job. These are beautiful words that are said by Job. Not to say that Jophar doesn't say some things, but as Job says, he says, do people not already know these things, Jophar? They know that God is the one that watches over the righteous. But then Job goes on to explain about how the animals could teach you these things, and how there's knowledge within the earth that is known far beyond, but that God is almighty, and that you cannot pull the wool over God's eyes or hoodwink God, for wisdom and power and counsel and understanding are God's. And he holds back the waters. He's the one that sets priests on high and sets rulers, makes nations, destroys them, enlarges them, deprives them. And those who rebel against God, as it says, they grope in darkness, and he makes them stagger like they're drunk. So beware of not following God, for he holds all things within him. And lastly, we hear about Abraham and his testing with Isaac, and how he does everything that's asked of him, and so God rewards him. He says, your descendants will be like the stars in the sky. You will have all these things because you have obeyed me and you have walked in my ways. And how glorious is that? When we walk in God's ways, God is willing to give us whatever it is that he has promised us from old. He doesn't withhold his hand. He ends up, remember, he continuing talks about your one and only son. This is a preamble to Christ, who will die, the one and only son of God that will die, and he doesn't withhold his hand from him. He doesn't save him last minute and say, oh, by the way, there's a ram that can be sacrificed in your stead. No, Jesus actually goes to the cross and dies. And so this is a foreshadowing of the great sacrifice to come through Christ. And so we thank God for those like Abraham who stepped forward in faith and did as God asked and received the blessing. And also I find it's very interesting, the death of his wife Sarah, that he actually pushes for them to sell him the property. I think it's important sometimes that we don't just take every gift that we're given, that some maybe needed to be paid for, especially when it's something of such importance like a grave for our loved ones. In this instance, I mean, I'm sure there's other instances when that's not the case, but I think in this instance it's important that sometimes when it's something of utmost importance that we put our money forward, because it shows our importance in such a matter. And Abraham does this with Sarah, and he buys this cave for her body. And so, but we just give thanks for ones like Abraham who walk in the ways of God and do glorious things. We thank you for listening today, and that you might be blessed in this day. Pray for your prayers as we go along for myself, and I pray for those who watch this, that the Word of God might sink deep into their soul. Thank you. Have a blessed day. Goodbye.